Colm Plunkett is a nurse. He's a fisherman and he likes to fish on the rocks, and he was washed into the sea and he survived, and he'll now tell us his story. Thank you very much.
Myself, like the Irish Coast Guard, had a lovely PowerPoint presentation. However, we will use it to keep me on track, otherwise we'd be here till tomorrow night. All right. So I'll just tell you a few little bits about myself, bits that I think are relevant to why I'm here, bits that I think are relevant to why I survived my near-drowning experience. I'm 54 years, I'm married with 3 children. I am experienced in life. My mother was always nothing ventured, nothing gained. My father was always safety first. So the combination of those, that's why I'm a fisherman and I'm not going to stop. But I know that inherently, when you stand at the edge of the ocean, you are in a real danger zone, whether you realise it or not. I have been nursing now for 20 years. Currently I work in oncology haematology in an inpatient unit. It's a very busy, very chaotic environment. You need to be able to think on your feet. Previously, I have a life before nursing. I worked in mining and exploration in very remote locations and also in very hazardous situations. So I do have that safety consciousness built in. I have been fishing since the age of 9 years, the first time that fish hooked me. Mostly it's sea fishing. I do a bit of river fishing, but I like the sea. And I have been boating since I was a teenager, both here in Ireland in seas and rivers, and also in Canada, where I lived for 10 years. So what did I know before I ended up in the water? I knew that fishing from the rocks is inherently dangerous. You slip, you trip, you fall all the time. And this is absolutely guaranteed if the rocks are wet. If it rains, if it's misty, you're near the splash of the water, you will slip, you will trip, you will fall. That's guaranteed. Severe injury is possible. Now, what happens if you go into the sea? Self-rescue may not be an option. Fishing on the Atlantic coast is dangerous. It's a remote location, an unpredictable sea, cold, deep water, a lot colder than I found out than I realised. And there are these rogue waves, and we see fatalities from that situation all the time. I knew a little bit about hypothermia, and an important thing that I knew was it will be accelerated by movement. I knew nothing about cold water shock, and boy was I in for an awakening. So the routine preparations, I'm a smart guy. Life jacket, no fishing, and that's not negotiable. When I go fishing and I bring people with me, I feel responsible for them because I am. And everybody wears a life jacket or they don't go fishing. I always have a plan. And the plan at that time, that was this time last year, was if anybody goes in the water and they're in there longer than a couple of minutes, are they going to be able to get out or not? Call the Coast Guard. Also, no one else enters the water, no one. And monitor the person in the water until help arrives. I would always go over the plan with everybody and I would ensure that everybody understood it and would clarify it with them. You know what you're doing. You're not going in the water. You're calling the Coast Guard. All right? And you're going to stay. I would remind my buddies or my family of their location. And a lot of the times I actually go fishing on my own. So it would be a text message to say, I'm starting to fish, I'm finishing fishing. Bring the phone. Ensure the phone is charged and has credit. I carry a waterproof phone, a rugged phone. Of course, me being a smart man, I know these things don't work too well, even if it's waterproof, if they get a little wet. And if you get cold, your fingers don't activate them so easily. I carry what I call my dumb phone, another rugged phone, but it has buttons. It has buttons. Numb fingers, numb brains, there's no problem here. All right. So I bring my backup phone. And again, I make sure that's charged and is waterproof. So off we go fishing. It was August the 23rd last year. I'm living right in the middle of the country in Burr. You can't get any further from the sea, but that's another story. I like the fish where the fish are. And so the spot that I really like is way down at Dursey Island, which is in the extreme southwest. If you step off Dursey Island, your next stop is going to be in New York. There is nothing else. It takes me about 4 hours to get there. Now, the first 2 hours gets me to Killarney, and that's over 3/4 of the way there. The other 2 hours is negotiating the small road. So it is remote. If you need help, you're going to have to wait for it. The plan was I was going to check out a new fishing spot as well as fish in my normal fishing spot. My normal fishing spot's on the north side. The new spot I was going to check out in Fairkeel Bay was on the south side. The wind was to start on the south, move around towards the north. So the plan was I like to fish with the wind at my back. Better for casting, I feel it's safer, you don't have as much waves splashing up onto you. So the plan was I'll fish with the wind at my back on the north side. In the afternoon I'll go to the south and I'll look for a new spot in Fairkeel Bay because I know there's fish there too. It's great fishing spots. So that was the plan. I went myself and my daughter, 16-and-a-half-year-old Orla. We were both wearing our life jackets. They're the same life jackets as what you saw downstairs. A bog standard 150 Newton life jacket. They didn't have crotch straps. I knew, oh, well, crotch straps would be nice, but I really didn't appreciate the significance that a crotch strap can make. But I knew that there was a danger, if they weren't really snug, that they could ride up. So the life jackets were really quite snug. It was a lovely calm day. Now, calm, of course, for the Atlantic Ocean is the waves were probably only 3 foot, maybe 4 foot, but they weren't big, huge crashing waves. It was a day like today, beautiful blue skies, little puffy white clouds, lovely and warm, just exactly like today, with the barest up breeze. I was fishing at the north end of Dursey Channel. When I went there, the wind was supposed to be from the south. I'll fish with the wind at my back on the north side. Oh, well, lads. The wind had changed early. So now the wind was coming from the north side and I had a decision to make. Should I fish with the wind in my face or should I go to Fairkeel Bay where I don't know where I'm going to fish, but I know there's somewhere over there? Because I had been out the week before with my 2 daughters, Orla and Aoife, in Clare, and we caught nothing, and that doesn't normally happen. That's the first time it's happened. That's no boast now. But I caught nothing. I thought, no, I can't bring Orla here and to go to Fairkeel Bay with the wind at me back and catch nothing. She will never come fishing again. So I said, we'll go to the guaranteed fishing spot. Everything is good. It's calm. We'll be fine. We'll fish the lunch hour and then we'll go to Fairkeel Bay. Why do I fish at Dursey Island? Because there's strong currents there. You're fishing off the rocks. You're directly on the water. All right, you're standing at the water's edge. It's full of currents. It's full of eddies. There is a good draw on the water. The tide does range, and on that day it was ranging over about 3 to 4 metres from high tide to low tide. Now, unlike when you're at the beach and when you're fishing at the beach, you can't see how big the waves are until they actually get to you. All the waves look the same. It's going up and down out there. You see these swells. If there's a big wave, the way that you know it, you'll only get about 3, maybe 4 seconds warning. The sea goes down more than it has for all the other waves, and then it'll come up more than it has for all the other waves. So you're constantly watching the water. If it goes down farther than normal, you say to yourself, we're going to get a big one here. You're looking at it coming up. You settle yourself into the rocks. You get a good wide base. There you can actually sit back on the rocks. You can hold them if necessary. But even with that, you will know there, and I will know there, anyone that fishes there will know that although you're 6, 8, 10 feet above the water a couple of times during the day will come up round your knees, maybe up even to your waist. And you have to be prepared for that, because that will knock you off balance and you're gone. So I was watching the water. We fished away, starting from about 10 o'clock. High tide was about 10:30. It was about 12:15, and Orla decided she wanted to take a break, so she went up further on the rocks, and she was no longer fishing. She did have my smartphone because she wanted to take a few photographs. But even though she was up out of the way, the name of the game is you're wearing a life jacket. All right, we only take the life jackets off when we get back to the car, so they're still mandatory. I have a lovely photograph here of the last 3 fish landed. The timestamp on the photograph was 12:19. I landed my last 3 fish. I put them in my bucket. Now the tide was highest at 10:30. It was nearly 2 hours later. It had gone down quite a good bit. So I was actually losing a lot of fish trying to get them in over the rocks. So I decided, look, the tide has moved down. I need to move down. So I moved closer to the tide, closer to the water. I was standing at the water's edge again. The water was 6 foot below me. Again, I was watching the water, and before I even had time to cast, I could see the sea dropped on down. It went well down a good bit, and I thought, oh, we're getting a big one here. I settled back on the rock. Up she came, up around my knees. I thought, that's grand. So I stood up again, and again, watching the water, because oftentimes those big waves will come in twos. And I'm looking at the water, my little peak cap on, and the sea goes down and down and down. And I'm thinking, Mother of Jesus. And I hear this unmerciful roar, and I'd never heard a roar like this before, and certainly hadn't heard a roar out of the sea there. And I knew instinctively that I was going to get hit by a massive wave. I knew I was in trouble. Now certainly, the name of the game is cut and run, but how can I cut and run when I have to come down to the water? So I did the next best thing. I dropped the rod at my feet, I turned around. I'm experienced at rock climbing. I held on, I wedged myself in, I made myself as small as possible, and then I was hit by a wave. It was like being in a washing machine. I could feel the full force of the wave. It was all around me, coming down, coming up. Everything was white. Next thing, I was up and gone. And then next thing, I was going down. And when I say I was going down, I mean I was going down. And this wave had pulled me right the way in, and I was well below the water. Instant fear, like I have never ever felt before. Instant panic. You can't stop these things. Instant fear, instant panic. I felt my life jacket inflate, and I came to the surface. And boy, oh boy, was I glad to see the light again. Immediately, instinctively, I took a big gasp, and then I started to breathe faster than you can imagine. Even faster than that. That's slow compared to the way that I was breathing. Being a nurse, I knew this was not good. If I keep breathing like this, I will blow off enough carbon dioxide in 30 seconds or a minute. I will pass out. Now, all the water was still draining back off at the land. I was still, even though I had a life jacket, I was still bobbing up and down. Water was still coming like this. There was a lot of air in the water, so I didn't have the full buoyancy benefit from the life jacket. So I consciously knew that if I didn't slow my breathing, there was a good risk that I would drown. So it was essentially forcing myself, slow your breathing. Now, I heard you talking this morning about hold your breath. You can't hold your breath. All right, it's impossible. But you can concentrate on slowing your breathing. So that's what I did in the initial moments. As I was doing this, I knew I was in terrible trouble, because as quick as you can walk, I could see where the rocks where I had gone in moving away from me. I was going out. I decided the plan that we had, I should wait a couple of minutes. If he doesn't get out, bring the Coast Guard. Maybe that wasn't such a good plan after all. So I tried to shout, call the Coast Guard. I couldn't. Literally, I couldn't. Why? I couldn't. But we had a backup. If before those couple of minutes are up, you want someone to call the Coast Guard, yeah, do this. All right, get on the blower, get the Coast Guard. So this is what I did. But I was still feeling very distressed. Could Orla see it? I never even thought, is she in the water? Is she out of the water? All I knew was I was off in the water. She was on the land because she'd gone up higher. Can she see me? Can she not? When I slowed my breathing sufficiently to be able to start to just one word at a time say, call the coast. I'm already talking to them. All right? So I was delighted. This was a great relief for me. So I knew I didn't have to worry about that anymore. But I still had to worry about surviving. At this stage, I was moving quite a distance away, and this was only in 10, 15 seconds. I was moving quite a distance away from where I had gone in. When Orla got on the phone to call the Coast Guard, and this is just a diversion for me back to Orla, 112, all the mobile phones, 112, get you your emergency services. I want the Coast Guard. Lovely. Coast Guard, yeah, what's the problem? My father's been washed into the sea. Right, where are you? Oh, shit. Oh, it begins with a D. There's an island here and there's a cable car. We're in County Cork. Oh, God. No, Jez, lads, doesn't ring a bell. Hang on a minute. Do you know anywhere it begins with a D, cable car? Oh, Dursey, yeah, right. Dursey. That's it, Dursey. Dursey, County Cork. I don't know now. Your signal's actually coming from County Kerry. It couldn't be in Cork. No, I know we're in Cork. It's Dursey, County Cork. Right. Of course, at this stage, he was listening to a 16-year-old telling him there was a problem in Cork, signal coming from Kerry. Is this a hoax call? Would there be responsible adults there that I could speak to? He's in the water. All right, and these are real things that happen. All right, okay. Is there a responsible person at home I could talk to? My mother. Good old mammies. You can always rely on the Irish mammy. They're great. So she gives the number, rings home. Hello, Mrs. Plunkett, I have your daughter on the phone. Your husband is washed out to sea. We're just trying to locate where he is. Can you help us? Of course, she doesn't want to hear this. And in any way, all she knows is I'm gone fishing. Don't ask me where. He's gone fishing. Talk to me other daughter. She goes fishing with him. She knows where he's gone. So then they rang my eldest daughter and she says, yes, he's definitely gone to Dursey. Yes, it's definitely in County Cork. Oh, okay. So do you know exactly where in Dursey he was? Because Dursey is the end of a peninsula. Am I on the end? Am I on the north side? Am I on the south side? Am I on the island? So she says, well, his normal fishing spot is on the north side, but I know he was going to check out a spot in Firkeel Bay. I don't know which one he went to first, but he has a rule. He always fishes with the wind at his back. And I do, but I didn't that day. So, okay, that's grand. We will take care of that. So what they did then was they tasked Rescue 115, the helicopter from Shannon, to go down to find me. They tasked the Ornelly lifeboat from Castletownbere to come across and to check out Firkeel Bay on the south side. And they tasked the community inshore rescue boat from Derrynan, which is just beside Caerdaniel when you look at the map in Kerry. They tasked the community inshore rescue boat from Derrynan to come across from the north side, because they cover Kenmare Bay on that side, come across from the north side to assist with the rescue and see if they could find me. Meanwhile, I'm back in the water and I'm thinking, it is not supposed to be like this. And that's literally what I thought. It is not supposed to be like this. I've been in the water, I've been in life jackets, I've been in the lake, I've been in the river, but I had never been in the sea where it's rough. I had never swum with all my clothes. I was essentially wearing what I'm wearing now. I had nice big heavy steel cap boots on. I was wearing wet gear as well, because even though it's a beautiful warm day, you're going to get wet. You're at the sea, you're fishing. So I had all this to deal with. Also, I was going the wrong way. My life jacket had deployed, but I was still drowning. And drowning I was. I was heading out to sea. Here's me, a little cork in the sea. Here's the waves. These waves were coming over back at me. I didn't know whether I should be facing them forwards, backwards, sideways. I figured it out fairly quick, I can tell you now. I had my back to the waves, and the waves were breaking over top of me. And every time that a wave broke over top of me, it was like someone getting a 40-gallon drum and just pouring it over my head. You can't breathe. So my immediate life-threatening problem was keep the water out, get the air in. Now the problem with the waves is it's not like the cartoons. A wave, count 2, a wave, count 3, a wave. You have a wave, you have a wave, you have a wave, you have a break, you have a wave, no, you don't have a break, no, you have another wave. So it was absolutely, totally chaotic. I was struggling to breathe. I was literally spitting water out and trying to get air in, which was really quite difficult. Physically, it was demanding. Mentally, it was demanding. I was lost and I was alone. And the sky that you saw out there today, I was aware that it's still sunny out there, but it was like the whole sky was black in my little world. And I was surrounded by waves, and these waves were literally coming over top of me, trying to drown me. Mentally, it was mental torture. I kept saying to myself, relax, the life jacket's holding on you, concentrate on your breathing, you got to relax. And the other half of me was saying, you can't keep this up forever, you're going to drown, you'll never keep the water out, relax, get your next breath, stay calm, work with what you got, water out, air in. And that was the name of the game. Water out, air in. Relax, you have to pace yourself. I knew that the Coast Guard had been called. I had faith, and I still have faith more now, that they would get here, and all I had to do was to hang on. The other thing that I was aware of was, I'm in this big sea, I'm going out, I'm in a remote location, I need to preserve my heat. So while I had a focus on air in, water out, I was trying to keep my movement to a minimum, because I knew if I was moving, I was spilling heat. I was pumping heat out to my arms and my legs, and the sea was sucking it out of me. Although all the time that I was in, from the minute I went in to the minute I came out, the water never felt wet. It never felt salty, although I was drinking it. And the water itself never felt cold. Intellectually, I knew I must be cold, I must be getting cold. So I got to the point, everything was very dark. If you like, I got tunnel vision. And I said to myself, I'm not going to be able to do this forever. I am going to die, And then I thought, well, maybe I won't. Well, what control do you have over it? None. So then I turned to the person that does have control, and I said, God, we've got a good working relationship here. We've always had. But I'm in your hands now. If I'm going to come out of this, it's because you are going to allow it to happen. It's not because of anything that I'm going to do, but you are going to allow it to happen. So I just trust myself to you. Do what you may. I'm not making any promises. I'm not going to do great, wonderful things. But I know something good will come out of it. So I just put that to one side then, up to you, and then I got on with it. Water out, air in, relax, you're doing fine, it's okay, one breath at a time. And I continued like that. Suddenly I was aware, because I could see the islands as I'd never seen it before, I was being shoved westwards, and then I was being shoved back in from whence I came. And the waters became calmer. Now I say calmer, I was still having difficulty, but not as much. And as luck would have it, God shot me back exactly where I had come back from, and I came back to see my daughter Orla still standing there, still waiting for me, as she had been told to do by the lifeguard. She said to me, "The Coast Guard, they are on the way," and that gave me the biggest boost and the biggest lift that you could ever imagine. Now I knew that I was going to go through that channel and out the other side, and I said to Orla, "Move up, keep with me." "No," she said, "the Coast Guard said to stay put and keep an eye on you." And I thought, oh no, move up, you're going to lose. "No, I'm staying put." And I thought, oh fine, yeah, grand. I'll give you 2 minutes till you can't see me anymore, and then you'll move. And certainly that's what happened. I drifted through the channel. As soon as I was disappearing, she got this terrible look and was like, "Oh my God, he's gone." And she hightailed it out of there and followed me on down. So I was continuing through the channel. The fishing spot is probably about 400 yards from the cable car. Now the cable car has always lots of visitors. Not very many Irish, but lots of foreign visitors. All right, and it was packed that day. It was packed before we left for the fishing, and it was still packed. And then suddenly someone saw me, and next thing, all the eyes went, shh, and all the hands went, shh. And I thought, well, they know where I am now. But then the strangest thing, some of them, it was literally like watching a Charlie Chaplin film in the Keystone Cops. Some of them started running up and down. I mean, they were probably 100 yards away from the water, but they were running up and down, parallel to the shore. Some of them were running up and down from the water, back to the cable car, to the water. And I was afraid that one of those would try and be a hero, because I thought to myself, no, the Coast Guard's on the way. I just have to hang on and they will get me out. But if one of these guys goes in, they're in trouble. So that was my fear. There was one gentleman there. He did get the life ring and he came down and he said to me, "Can you get any closer? And maybe I can get you with the life ring, you know." And I thought to myself, geez lads, I'm very tired. And I was. Physically, I was exhausted. Mentally, I was very tired, although I'd gotten a big boost from Orla saying, "The boys, they're on the way." So I said, "Look," I says, it is too tiring," I said, "besides, the Coast Guard's on the way." So we were close enough that I could say that. I mean, it was a good 100 metres. I mean, the channel there is probably 250, 300 metres wide. So part of my let's just focus on me and let's just focus on keeping together until someone comes and pulls me out of this horrible place that I'm in, I actually turned my back because I thought, look, I just don't want to deal with these people anymore. I know they're on the way. I will just keep myself happy. I'll keep myself still. If I happen to drift anywhere towards land, maybe I can get to the edge. Even if it's inaccessible, they'll come and get me in a boat or a helicopter or something. But I just want to be out of this water. So I carried on up, and then I started thinking, who's going to get me? Is it going to be the lifeboat from Castletown Bear? Is it going to be the helicopter? How long have I been in the water? And I didn't know any of these things, but I felt sure the helicopter's the fastest. They would have dispatched that like that. He'll be here first. And I'm thinking, okay, so where is he? He's not here. Okay, relax. And then I was thinking, oh my God, the cable car. If they don't get me out now, in a couple of minutes I'll be too close to the wires and now they won't be able to get me out. I'll have to wait till I go under. And at that stage I was desperate to get out. And why, I don't know. I felt safe. But intellectually I was saying, let me out of here. I just want out. So anyway, I got close enough to the wires and I thought, well, that's it. Jeez, lads, now I have to wait. Watch kettle never boils. Don't look up. Jeez, if you look up, you'll never get under these damn wires. So I just kept my head down. Oh, I must be under them. And I looked up, and what did I see? Right above me, literally right above me, but the cable car and all these little faces looking out. And that's when I got what I call my Spike Milligan moment. Spike Milligan being a comedian with a kind of a weird sense of humour. And I thought to myself, should the dead man wave to the tourists? And that's really what I thought. I mean, the weird things go through your brain. And I mused about it for a little while, and then I thought, no, Drizzle, you're a nurse, you have to be responsible. No, they might be traumatised. And then the Irish humour stuck in, and it says, and they're Yanks and they'd sue your estate. So, although in reality it'd probably be the Irish would sue your estate. And anyway, so I passed through, I was gone by, and still there was no one there. I was looking around. Yes, I could see this big ship going rounds out in the bay. It's a big trawler that had gone through the Sound probably about a half hour before I went in. But I couldn't see a lifeboat, I couldn't hear a helicopter, I couldn't see anything. And I thought to myself, you know, I'm going out, I'm going to lose the protection of the island, and I'm going back out in that rough water again. And I didn't feel comfortable. And I was looking around, still, what can I do to help myself? And I saw a big buoy, about this size, that was attached to a lobster pot. The fisherman's nightmare, because they always put them where you want the fish. And then your line gets tangled and you lose your gear and all sorts of stuff. And I thought, that's about 4 to 5 metres off where I will drift by on the course that I'm going. If I can get to it, maybe I can hang on to it and I can stay in the gentle water. I don't want to go out the other side. And I decided it was a risk worth taking. Although I was exhausted, although I knew that if I was moving, I could feel a bit of cold in my arms, I was spilling heat, I decided, look, this is a risk worth taking, because if I go out the other side, I don't know if I can keep the water out. So I put in what I felt was a superhuman effort, and I swam, and I swam, and I swam, and again I was thinking, don't stop, swim, and swim, and swim, and swim. You wouldn't have gone far enough, you're very weak, swim, and swim, and I decided, geez, I can't swim anymore. And I looked, and there was the boy just at me, and I drifted into it, and I held on. And I was thinking, that's grand, now I'm here, okay, so I'm safe. I could still see the people at the cable car. Now, they were a bit away from me now at this stage because I'd gone out the other side. And I was thinking, okay, and then it was a thought, hang on, am I still holding on to this rope? Because I couldn't feel my hands, I couldn't feel my feet. And I thought, am I still holding it? And it's like, oh, I am, okay. And then I thought, you know, sooner or later I'm going to let go of this rope. What am I going to do? I have to do something. If I let go, I'm gone out. I'll go unconscious, hypothermia will get me, I'll drown. And it was just at that time that I don't know whether it was a shout went up or what happened, but I suddenly became aware they're here. And I thought, they're here. And I looked from around the buoy, I was like, oh, and I lifted it up and I could see the inshore rescue boat coming across from County Kerry, a 4-man rib. And it rushed into the Sound. It looked to me all the while like an SAS team or James Bond or something. They went shh, and they're coming into the Sound. I'm thinking, oh, thank God, they're here. And then I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute. I don't want them looking in every nook and cranny on the way through. So I thought, how can I get their attention? They don't know where I am. The people on shore, are they going to be able to tell them? So I thought, a moving object will catch the eye. So I lifted the buoy and I shook it. And as soon as I did that, I could see them straightening up, and they came straight to me. This big Kerry man, the biggest Kerry man I've ever seen, shovels for hands, his neck was like this, big huge ears, hands out front, and I grabbed a hold of it, and I thought, I am never ever letting go of this hand again. There is no way I'm letting go of this. Now the plan was that they would lower a Jacob's cradle, I believe it's called. It's like a big roller blind. All right, move you into it, pull it up and roll you into the boat. Now, of course, when my life jacket deployed, part of the webbing on the back had detached, and that was catching on the Jacob's cradle, so they couldn't move. And I was thinking, I'm not letting go. I know they're having difficulty. I'm not letting go. And then I was thinking, geez, maybe I could jump up into that boat. Again, these weird thoughts. I'm sure I could get out. And I was, we're stupid. No, just hang on to the hand. And then I could hear them talking. He's stuck. We can't. Geez. Can you get him to let go? And I said, I'm not letting go. No, he's not letting go. So they said, right, grab anything you can, which they did. And I ended up with horrendous bruises. But they pulled me out in an unceremonious manner. The boys from Derrynan, they were the ones that pulled me out, and I do owe them a debt that I can never repay. So initially they sat me on the deck, they put me in a big plastic bag to try and reduce my evaporation heat loss. But before they did that, they started to let my life jacket down, and I thought, oh, hang on a minute, no, I don't want this, that life jacket's just lasted me all this time, don't let it down, what if? And then another half of me was thinking, look, they've saved your life, they're the rescue crew, they're trained, let them do what they want. But there was this conflict, what do I do? And I was like, no, shut up, let them do what they want. And then my thoughts turned to Orla, and I says, because at this stage, the Ornelai lifeboat had arrived, the helicopter had arrived, and I thought they're going to winch me off. And I says, do you have a mobile phone that I can call my daughter and let her know that I'm all right? And they said, it's all right, we're going in there, we can see her, she's fine, she knows you're fine, and we're actually going to land you, and we'll take you from there. So I was relieved to hear that, so I would see my daughter. So they brought me to shore, and again we get into shore. There's a small little jetty there, one of these old granite things that have been built probably 150 years ago, real solid structures. And they brought me in there, and then they were, well, how are we going to get them out? You know, will we move about this way? Will we move? And all the time I'm thinking, jeez lads, it's only that high. I can leap up out of here, I'm feeling strong as an ox. And my little voice says, don't be stupid. Let them do their thing. So I thought, okay, let them do their thing. So they manoeuvred the boat in, and they stepped me out gently and walked me gently up the steps. Now, one of the things that struck me initially when I was pulled out of the water, and now again that I was walking up those steps, was they pulled me out, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, now this is luxury. Now I realised that water was freezing, and it was like stepping into the hottest sauna you could imagine, and it was like, yeah, I could live in this. Oh, this is nice. And again, when I got onto shore and I was walking up those granite steps, they'd been in the sun all day, and for me it was like walking on hot lava. I mean, it really felt that hot. The helicopter landed on shore just a couple of 100 yards up. It turned out that I had spent 55 minutes in the water. 55 minutes. They did take my temperature. My temperature was 32 degrees centigrade. 32 degrees centigrade. So I wasn't doing too bad. Well, I don't think I was. I wouldn't want my body temperature 32 degrees centigrade now. But for having spent nearly an hour in the sea in just what I'm wearing, I thought to myself, no, this is pretty good. I was thinking, maybe not as clear as I normally would, but I was thinking, I was still reasoning. I got to the top of the steps and I thought, okay, now they're going to strip the clothes off me because they're wet, they'll be drawing heat out of me, and I was like, they're going to strip the... Oh, feck this. So I started to take the clothes off, and I was like, oh, yeah, get the clothes off them. So then I was stripped naked in a flash. However, they were very kind. They did give me some of their own jackets and some of their own clothes and wrapped me in tin foil. Well, you know, those space blankets. The HSE ambulance had not quite arrived at that stage. They were coming from Castletown Bear, and they sat me down on that little jetty there. I really realised then how cold I was, because initially I was sitting there and I was thinking, I'm not shivering. And I knew from my nursing that not shivering is not a good sign at this stage. I should be shivering because you're cold, you shiver, you get very cold, you stop shivering. And then I started to shiver. And I shivered like nothing that I've ever experienced before. And this shiver, you'd think that I was having an epileptic fit. I was in convulsions. I was like this, and I couldn't control it, nor was I interested in controlling it. Because once I started to shiver, I was relieved, and I said to myself, you're going to be okay. The HSE paramedics came down. The helicopter paramedic came down. They initially put in an IV line. I told them where to get it. This is very well planned. I give platelets, so I know where my best vein is. And it stands proud in any way, although it wasn't standing very proud at this time because it was all shut down peripherally. But I said, look, this is where you need to go. this is where it is. It runs that direction. It doesn't run like everybody else's, is this way. So fair enough. He took my advice and he went for it. Although he did lie. He said it was a hole in one and it was a hole in three, which I saw later when I saw the 3 little holes. All right, but he got it. So warm IV fluids to try and warm the core of me, and warm packs to the groin and to the neck. At that stage, they put me on a stretcher and they carried me up to the helicopter. Myself and Orla were brought aboard. It was the nice new Sikorsky 92 where you walk in the back. And they airlifted me across to Cork University Hospital. When I got there, they treated me further for my hypothermia. They just checked me from a cardiac perspective with an ECG. They did chest x-ray just to see had I inhaled any water, although I didn't think that I had. Mind you, I was thirstier than thirsty for the next 24 hours. Although I got 3 litres of fluids in 12 hours, which is a good whack, I also drank 4 2-litre jugs of water, and I didn't piddle that much. So I was well dehydrated. Where the fluid went, I'm sure Mike Tipton will tell you. But I was very thirsty. The other thing is, for about a week later, I did have a little bit of a cough. And every time that I coughed up something, it was really salty. So even though I thought I hadn't taken anything on board, I had actually, I must have, because it was coming from somewhere. So what saved me? I mean, why am I here? Well, ultimately, and that's the hard thing, because it's not ultimately this or ultimately that. It's a lot of little things coming together. The life jacket saved me. It kept me floating and on top of the water. I didn't have to think about float first, swim later, a term which I didn't hear until later, all right, and which is the term that I try and use when I'm talking to people. So it kept me floating on top of the water. The plan saved me. The plan saved me. Most people don't have a plan. When I talk to other fishermen, I volunteer with the RNLI now, and I talk to other fishermen, and I say, what if? You have the life jacket, what if? You don't have to, what if? You're in the water, how are you going to get, what if? People don't have a plan. I thought this was just normal, but people don't have a plan. The plan saved me. It was in place, and it was appropriate for the emergency. My daughter saved me. She kept her head and she followed the plan. Would I have kept my head and followed the plan if she had gone in? Honest answer, I don't know. The Irish Rescue Services, they saved me. They were well coordinated and they were well trained. My phone saved me. It's rugged, it's waterproof, it was fully charged and it worked when I needed it to. My nursing experience saved me. It kept me calm in the chaos. It enabled me to stay focused. It helped me to prioritise. My life experience, it saved me. Safety first. Pre-planning is necessary. My attitude saved me. And what do I mean by that? Do what is right even when it's not popular. I'd been wearing that life jacket for 10 years. For 10 years. I hadn't seen any other fisherman wearing that life jacket. I got jeers, I got sneers, I got dirty looks, I got, who the fuck is your man? A lot of peer pressure not to wear life jackets, at least in the fishing community. So my attitude saved me. Keep going, can do, will do. It wasn't that I wasn't willing to get up or wasn't willing to give up, but as long as I had breath in me, it was like, let's just keep focusing on what's important now. You can do this, do it. Finishing is more important than winning, something which I really believe in life. It's not who wins that counts. It's all those people that come across the line. They're all winners. There were a couple of things that struck me. The paramedic on Rescue 115, he said to me, he says, you're a very lucky man. You are the first angler that we've pulled out alive. You're also the first one wearing a life jacket. And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. I was discharged from the hospital the next day, the next afternoon. Of course, I headed back to Dursey, which was a good 2.5-hour drive. On the way there, I got a phone call. This is the Kerryman newspaper. Jay's great story. Can we run it? Oh, yeah. Can we get a fit picture up with the Derrynan boys to pull you out? Oh, yeah, no problem. We're a bit tight for a deadline. Can you do it this evening? Well, okay. So I drove to Dursey Island, Cork to Dursey, and then to Kenmare, and then to Caerdaniel. So I left the hospital about 3 o'clock. I got to Caerdaniel about 8:30, just to catch the light. I've a lovely picture here. Cheers, we look well. I met the guys that were in that rib that came and pulled me out. They said to me, you know, we were halfway across when we were told. They're using VHF, limited range. They have a base station back at their base. They had a man there who was relaying information from them to the Coast Guard, from the Coast Guard to them. They said we were halfway across when we were told you were wearing a life jacket. We looked at each other in disbelief. Anglers don't wear life jackets. We can get this fella. We can get him. And they really pulled out all the stops. The life jacket undoubtedly saved your life. And I was talking to the coxswain by text, if you can call that talking, just the other week. And he said, yeah, he says, it's a rescue that has to be told. Keep her lit, as they say. So me being a nothing ventured, nothing gained, I'm still going fishing. Safety first. It's like, okay, did the plan work? Will the plan work? Does it need to be tweaked? What do we need to do differently? So I have implemented some changes. The plan, ring immediately. Don't wait. I don't care whether he's getting out of the water on his own or not. Ring immediately. I got really frightened when I went online. I survived, great. Let's see what happened. Why was I feeling all these things? How come that happened? And I learned about cold water shock. I got really frightened then. I thought, oh boy, am I a lucky man? Am I a lucky man? Those first couple of minutes are so vital. So ring immediately. Also, I didn't think I'd inspired any water, but obviously I had. The life jacket. I have upgraded my life jacket. I was wearing fairly light stuff then. And just for an added bit of security, I put a bit more flotation in it. I have crotch straps now. The benefit of those, apart from the fact it keeps you riding up, I don't have to wear the life jacket as tight as I did without them. Now this is a new life jacket, of course. As tight as I did, and I find I can fish for longer. Stamina's increased, right? Because you can breathe properly. Also, most importantly, it has a splash hood. And that was another reason for me upgrading. It has a splash hood. So I can pull it down, and now I'm isolated in my own little tent. And this will save me from a waterboarding experience. I now have a personal locator beacon. And strangely enough, that particular day I nearly had a personal locator beacon. A couple of weeks beforehand, my cooker had given up the ghost. But the plan is to get a personal locator beacon. Yeah, but you got to eat. Army moves in his stomach. I'll be using the cooker before I use a personal locator beacon. Get the cooker. So I bought a lovely Primus stove. Will do me the rest of my life. Nearly did me the rest of my life that day too. And I had never actually used it that day. I could have done with the PLB, which I put off for another week till I got paid. The personal locator beacon that I use is actually this one. Now this is a dummy as well, before we get upset. The great thing about the personal locator beacon is I could not speak for minimum half an hour to 40 minutes when I was in the water. Minimum. I normally go fishing on my own. I couldn't make a telephone call, and my life did depend on it. The personal locator beacon is as easy to activate as that. A pull, a flick, a press. A minute later, you pop up on the Coast Guard's screen, and he says, Colm Plunkett has a life-threatening emergency, go get him. Personal locator beacon sends out a signal directly to the search and rescue satellite, you don't need mobile coverage. It will work as effectively in the middle of the Atlantic, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, in the middle of Australia on Ayers Rock. It'll also work at the North Pole and South Pole, although the North and South Poles, it'll take them longer to get a fix on you. All right? When they come looking for you, it also gives out another signal on 1 to 1.5 megahertz, and they can use that to hone in on you. And they can say, well, he's over there, yeah, we're getting closer. But I remember being in the water thinking, I want out of here. So I want them to find me now. So I also carry an electronic flare, an Odeo flare. This makes me more visible when they're coming looking for me. Now I've upgraded all the life jackets, but until everybody has a PLB, I'll have a PLB and someone else will have this. At least if they go in the water, we can make the call and they can come and find them more easily. There was a gentleman drowned there off Baltimore, just on the next bay over, next bay south from where I was fishing. He didn't arrive home at 7:30. He's missing. Where is he? I saw him at 2:30 and he was fishing. They went and they found his boat. Where is he? It was 11 o'clock the next day when they found his body. Now I was looking at Vessel Finder on the computer, looking at the search. And where he was found, they had actually searched around that area, but they couldn't find him. All right? It's very hard to find someone in the sea because they're up and they're down. You take your eyes off them and they're gone. All right? So personal locator beacon and an Odeo flare. A wetsuit. This saved me. Forget the slimming, guys. Fat keeps your heat, and this is where you need it. However, now I do use a wetsuit when I go fishing. And why? Because if I do end up in the drink again, I want to extend my survivability. I want to push that window out by which they can get me. What if that day the helicopter had been off rescuing somebody else? Now I would have had to wait for a different crew to come from somewhere else. Minutes count. I would have had to wait, God, I don't know how much longer. I might have been dead. The Odeo flare, the phones. I still have the 2 phones, but I institute a slight change. I give them my exact position. All right? I'm on the north side of Dursey. I'm in Fairkeel Bay. I'm at Fenor. All right? So I give them more information. And as normal, I text before I go to the water and once I'm safely away from the water. And safely away from the water is when, if I fall down and start rolling, I won't end up in the water. So usually you're looking at a couple of 100 yards. And if you remember, I said, what if Orla went in the water? Would I go in? Would I stay out? What would I do? And the honest answer is, it's a tough one. Because intellectually, no one else goes in the water. But emotionally, that's my child. She needs me. Right? So what I bought as of last Thursday is I do have a rescue throw bag. All right? And that stays on shore. So that if somebody does end up in the water, yeah, we can help assist the rescue. If we can't reach them with a throw bag, you're never going to get to them unless you have a boat. Because we all, well, anybody who's ever worn a life jacket knows that you really can't swim very effectively in them. You can get from A to B eventually, but there's not a lot that you can do with them.
Carry one in my boot next to the spare.
Yeah. So, that's my experience. I hope that by telling it, and certainly I try and share it where I can, that I can educate people so that they know what is it that might happen. And my sole purpose is to try and get people to wear a life jacket, to carry a reliable means of communication. And my advice is this is the most reliable because it's dependable and it will bring help to you. And it doesn't matter if you're on the top of Carrantoul or if you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The communication is nearly instantaneous and they will find you. And they will come as quick as they can. Thank you.